There's a simple invention that might be changing how we play the drums. Maybe you haven't seen it yet, but in my humble opinion, drum beats in the last 3 to 4 years are different than they were before. Here are just a couple examples of beats most drummers in 2010 wouldn't even have conceived of. Yes, before you leave stuff in the comments, I know some drummers would have, but I'm talking about like mainstream adoption here. Here's a drum beat that would have been considered cutting edge in the early part of the 2000s. And here's a recent beat, post this invention. Of course, I'm talking about this little cymbal stack. A pancake stack of cymbals that looks like it's out of a Dali or Henry Magritte painting, which makes an acoustic sound that sounds like a synth sample from the 80s. And there have been a ton of drum inventions and innovations, which I've mostly covered on this channel. Splash cymbals on snares and toms, synth pads, detuning heads you can slap on your snare drum to get a detuned sound, jingle bells and goat hooves to drop on random drums, snoms, bongos. But I don't think any of these has changed the way drummers are creating beats the way stacks have. Stacks have literally shifted the center of gravity away from the snare drum, allowing at least 2 layers of beats to happen at once, mirroring the creation of the drum kit in the first place. And last year, I made a video that posed a similar question. Are this type of stacks a fad?
Are smack stacks a fad?
And if they are, what's wrong with that? But I think we're beyond that now. Today, I want to ask a deeper question. Is this simple invention responsible for a wholesale rewiring of how we approach the drums? Are we going to look back on the early 2020s as another time when the drums evolved, as they did with the invention of the hi-hat, the double kick, and several other inventions? Oh, I'm Nate, and people call me the 80/20 drummer. And on this channel, we tend to go a little deeper on some of the drum conventional wisdom. Drum lessons for nerds, you might say. And today on 80/20 are pancake stacks, changing the way we play drums comprehensively. Is this a new evolution in drums? Stay tuned. And folks, today's video is brought to you by me, the 80/20 drummer. We're going to be throwing a lot of stack beats at you throughout this lesson. You might be tempted to transcribe them. You don't have to do that, we've done it for you. You can get that for free by clicking the link below the player. That's it, now on with the lesson. Before we even get into whether stacks are a sea change, let's cover what they actually do. If I play you a song from the 80s, like this from Devo, or possibly something from Prince if I can find it, you recognize that sound. It's kind of a clap, and it was super popular in programmed beats for a while. Here's another example from the early 2000s. Synth sounds were such a revolution in the 80s and 90s that there was genuine panic about whether they'd render acoustic drums obsolete. And when producers started making synth sounds, the obvious question was, why be confined to only what a human drummer could or would do? Or the sounds an acoustic drum kit can already make? Like, what if we just use a hand clap as a snare sound? And it worked brilliantly. And luckily, people are still hiring human drummers too. Beginning in the late 90s and early 2000s, acoustic drummers who'd grown up listening to the programmed and sampled beats started trying to recreate those sounds on the kit. They did it for the jungle drum and bass stuff. They did it for sampled beats like Dilla. And they did it for the synth sounds, like the smack sound. Skipping over a lot of history, that's how this pancake stack that looks like a Dali painting found its way onto drum kits. What caused its staying power is arguable. First, I'd say the smack sound in programmed beats never really left. It's such a cool backbeat, it's almost become an alternative for the snare in a lot of modern music.
I can't tell to tell to tell.
In fact, before we go on, let's learn a really simple stack beat. If we take a Clyde Stubblefield Harvey Mason funk beat with the backbeat played on the snare and simply move it to the stack, that's a very basic application. It allows another gear between verse and chorus, or depending on the arrangement, you can play the whole song here and use the snare for embellishment in a couple of ways we're going to get into later. Okay, back to history. We're asking what gave the stack its staying power with acoustic drums where other inventions kind of came and went. And it's my opinion that that's because the smack sound stayed pretty ubiquitous in music from the time it was invented. But here's where things took a twist. Programmed beats allow a great deal of freedom because the producer is not constrained by the physical and coordination limits of a real drummer. So you tend to see a lot of innovation there. But when it goes back the other way, human drummers put these things on the kit, and do you think they stop at just mimicking the samples? No, they don't. Drummers are gonna f**k with this stuff. So you get an instrument that originates to sound like a synth sound, then real-life drummers who take it and innovate with it, like any other toy. Like here I am playing a basic beat, like a programmed beat, using the acoustic drums in the stack. If I take a cue from gospel drummers, I might try to ornament the backbeat with some tom flourishes. Which is all well and good if I'm playing the backbeat on the snare. But what happens if I move it to the stack? Now, all of a sudden, you've freed the snare from any obligation to catch backbeats. Instead, it's a textural voice. And drummers like Jairus are going to try to extend what the instrument can do. As artists do. But I can hear you asking an obvious question. Nate, isn't that what they did with snoms and zilbells and all these other inventions? Why aren't you here saying those are poised to change drumming forever? That's a very good question. And indeed, we might have expected the Dolly stack to become just another cymbal that drummers ride on or use as a substitute for another stack. Except for one thing, the long history and continued use of that sound as a rim shot. It's my contention that, semi-ironically, by placing a constraint on the stack that it has to fulfill a rim shot function, music producers kind of sealed its fate. In a good way. Now, let's talk about some of the categories of things drummers can do that they have been doing with these stacks. The first category of stack beats are those that literally mimic the sounds the original synth smacks could make. Let's take a song I might get copyrighted for replaying, so I'll just play the drum beat. But check out this song. It's Sign of the Times by Prince. It's got a very classic drum machine beat that sounds like a Casio keyboard. If we simply move the rim shot to the stack, we get a beat that sounds like a ton of synth drum parts from the early 90s. The other category of what I'd call classic stack beats is house beats with an added backbeat. If we take something like the song Running from Alan Braxe and Fred Falk, which I'll play just a bit of here, the stack is perfect for reproducing this. You can play 4 quarters on the kick drum and simply the backbeats, or you can add a little hat. The next loose category I'd flag is house or house-style beats with hat embellishments. This is the stock and trade of Kaytranada, who like to mix disco samples with house beats. Here's a little of At All, so you can get the idea. To reproduce this on the acoustic drums, we play 4 on the floor, as we might with the house beat, and catch the backbeats on the stack. But now we do a little disco embellishment on the hats. Different, but at a similar level of innovation, is simply playing the stack along with the snare. Producers have been using the smack sample combined with the snare since way back. Sidebar, can somebody check me on that? I want to make sure I'm not crazy. But check out this ditty from Tom Misch and Other Soul. I'm not doing anything terribly innovative, but the stack sounds great layered on top of the snare. But eventually, drummers started playing crazier stuff. Say you're Jairus, and you're human, and you're playing a gig with Jose James, and you want to bring the energy level up. Well, there's precedent for this from the 2000s from Sir Chris Dave. But say you've got a stack there. Of course you're going to go ham. Let's talk about how to approach those beats. Okay, this is going to be a bit of a crash course. Here I am playing a funk beat with the stack as a backbeat. For the first layer, let's say I start implying a double time feel with my hat beats. Let's let me cook on this for a minute. Next, I might play an angular bass drum beat like something from Spanky, but I've got the whole right side of the kit to orchestrate to, and a ton of time with the right hand. So I'll start iterating some orchestrations. It's a similar thing with hip-hop beats, or halftime shuffles. I'll start with just the bog standard halftime shuffle hip-hop beat. Then I do the Chris Dave offset quarter triplet thing. Then just let me cook for a minute. Basic versions of these beats will be transcribed for you, and to get the transcription, just click the link below the player. But Nate, I can hear you saying. You started this video by asking, is this gadget revolutionizing the drums? And so far, all you've shown us is human drummers reproducing what a producer can do with the synth, and what some might call fancy beats, maybe even Instagram beats. Well, first I'd counter, it's not about whether you like the direction. I mean, I personally think those beats fuck. But even if you don't, it's about staying power. Is there a before and after to the way the kids are playing drums that you can trace directly back to this invention? And I'd wager that yes, there is. But that doesn't mean that everything you play with it has to be fancy. Which brings us to the fifth and last chapter. Part 5, Musical Multi-Layered Beats. This is Try by Madison McFerrin. I'm way too lazy to import the track and play along, so I'll just play you a little of this track, then try to reproduce it on the drums. Also less likely to get scary copyright warnings when I do it a C.
Know what to say.
During the verse, I can keep the 4 on the floor and play the sampled part with the left hand between the tom and the snare. But what if we want to bring in a backbeat? Easy, just use the stack. 15 years ago, you couldn't really play beats like this without a synth pad. Or doing that halfway rim shot on the snare everybody hates. But this concept generalizes too. Say I want to play a kind of swung bossa, with a little clave on the snare with a cross stick. Now I can add the backbeat on the stack. Ooh, I just got this idea, but say I wanted to do kind of a Mozambique, then layer a backbeat on top. This sounds vaguely like something Perrin Moss of Hiatus might do. It was also, shall we say, a coordination challenge. Seen enough? I think we demonstrated that Dali stacks are here to stay, at least for now. First, producers started using that synth smack sound in the 80s and 90s. Then human drummers got interested in reproducing sampled and synth beats, and percussion and cymbal manufacturers were happy to help invent acoustic devices that mimic the synth, hence the pancake stacks. Among many other things. Then the songwriters kept using that sound, so it never really declined in relevance. Then human drummers, being the innovation hounds they are, started using human coordination and instincts to f with it, which is how, at the extreme, we get beats like Jairus. And applications like these. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed that one. Am I way off base? As usual, leave a polite comment below. And folks, remember, if you'd like a completely free transcription of every beat I played in this lesson, you have only to click the link below the player and tell us where to send it on the next page. Dudes, it's been real. Always enjoy these. See you again real soon in another Lesson of the Week. There's a simple invention that might be changing how we play the drums. Can I sound any more cocked?